Hey everyone, Mr. Happy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mr. Happy, aka Mr. Happy Mondays, weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. It's been a busy week of releases. I really wanted to get a bunch of Magic Spoon ads out, and I had to grab them all in 1 week. So I released my Final Fantasy X Platinum video, I released my Final Coil raid retrospective, a thoughts video on 14 mobile, and I have more stuff on the way. However, I'm recording this Friday night, because I'm actually going to be away Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and I'll be back Tuesday. I could record this Saturday morning, but decided against it. I'm just going on a little mini vacation, something. I mean, my first trip to Charleston a couple months ago was really my first vacation in over a decade. And with everything that's gone on in my life, I should have had one way sooner. But just going away to a little beach getaway, you know, for a few days with Sophie and a few friends. So content's going to be really light this coming week. But I do have some stuff planned, thankfully, and stuff that's way on the back burner that, you know, some of you have been asking for I don't even know how long. Final Fantasy XI is on hiatus for the time being. 14 Let's Play on hiatus for the time being, until I can figure out a proper schedule that allows me to put out the content here and do my Twitch stuff and, of course, you know, spend some time with, you know, I don't live alone anymore. That's what I'm trying to say. And so just trying to work on scheduling and what I can get out and get done. So with that, let's get on to this video, because it's Friday night, and I just want to, it's like 8 o'clock, and I just want to get it over with. Shout out to the sponsor, of course, Steel Series. They sponsor every video. They sponsor the whole channel. So if you're ever looking for gaming peripherals, feel free to ask. Use the link that's in the description of like 90% of my videos. And there's a discount code that works year-round. They've been really understanding and supportive of me as a company and all the things I've been going through lately. And, you know, you can show appreciation to them anytime. And I've been using their products for the better part of like 7-8 years, and it's been great. So I recommend it, and you know, I have an affiliate link, so be sure to give them a look. And of course, shout out to anyone on Patreon supporting. I don't lock anything behind monetization. I don't really like doing it, but extra support's always welcome. I'm never going to say no, and so thank you to anyone who's over there. So with that, let's get on to the Q&A. Oh my goodness, there's a lot of text in this first question. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Howdy, Happy. Hi. Hope you're enjoying your vacation. Hopefully I am. Has the 14 team ever mentioned why they don't do gear bonuses or enhancement outside of exploration zones? Yes, because they are incredibly prone to poor balancing. If they want to add something really cool and unique, then there's a high probability that one class ends up excelling over others just because of that gear set bonus. Or if they try to do multiple gear set bonuses at any given time, there's one that's going to exceed the other, meaning one's useless and may shift the tide of what gear is actually useful a little too much. And if it's the other way around and one is... I'm sorry, I was going to go off to another point and I totally forgot. I'm still digesting the food that I just had. But yeah, it's a balancing issue has really been the core thing. Do I think it's impossible? No, I think if you just did flat stat bonuses, you could probably do something, but that's also not very cool. We all like to have the idea of like, oh, whenever you use this class specific skill, there's a chance to gain like, you know, this amount of haste, and when this buff wears off, it fires like a bonus shot that does, you know, 400 potency or something. You know, we think of things like that, and I think that's what they're concerned about. And I see why the question was so long. It's specifically because of, you know, trying to give examples from other games. I mean, I played WoW, I played ESO, I played Destiny. Like, I know what the bonuses look like. And yeah, it is largely because they are concerned with balancing. I think they need to be more willing to introduce side grade upgrades of some kind into more content that has special effects and more experimental special effects. Because people love that kind of stuff. And if you can't do it in the main game, if you're not willing to do it in the raid content, then be willing to create more places where that stuff is available. Heck, if they want to do that with Criterion, if they want to do that with Palace of the Dead, if they want to do that, like, I would love it. I wouldn't mind having some desire to collect gear from other contents to make those contents go smoother or easier. It would really motivate me. So maybe someday, but I wouldn't be too optimistic. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey Happy, or hey Haps, hi. I hope you had a nice vacation. I hope I do too. I was wondering if you ever thought or asked Square Enix if they considered a skill glam system. I think I asked this very exact question. It would have been like 7 or 8 years ago at this point. I think I specifically noted Fellfire on Warlocks in World of Warcraft in my example. I know I've at least talked about this before. Maybe I didn't ask them, though. And your exact suggestion, being able to toggle which version of the skills we have. Bard gets Wide Volley at the early levels and replaces Shadow Bite. I don't like Shadow Bite. I would prefer Wide Volley. So I would love the ability to kind of dial back and use that animation with the increased potency. I haven't suggested it to them, but I've suggested it in tons of videos that I would love that exact thing. So maybe if I get the chance, I reapproach it and word it that way, and I don't know, maybe something will come of it. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, Happy. Hi. Hope you're doing well. Hey, I'd say I am. In the live letter, they had a list of functions for the raid planner that were under consider. I already know where this is going. Among these was the option to share your planner. Yeah, I don't know if the translation for under consideration. Obviously, it said it on the slide, so we know those are the words they meant to use. But most of those features seem to be shoo-ins. Specifically, the one you mentioned here. You know, obviously sharing. Yoshi P himself said they need it. Like it's not optional. So I think they maybe shouldn't have chosen the word under consideration. It sounds more like what they've developed isn't that yet. Like it doesn't have the sharing function in what they've developed, and now they're like talking about how to incorporate it within the game. Because you're right, it would defeat the purpose. The raid planner is positioned to be one of the single biggest improvements to raiding quality of life that Final Fantasy XIV has seen. It only really beats out potions no longer being the super long annoying thing to use. Like that change at the beginning of Dawn Trail, it's that important. Being able to not only share it amongst other people, to have a PF that can share these things and get them around, but even just being able to pull it up and use it in combat, another under consideration thing, would be a game changer, because people already do that. They just do it with Discord or their phones or something. It's already a common practice. If you can do that in game, the improvement is going to be dramatic when it comes to the success of random groups. Like, I can't understate it enough. So while the raid planner I've memed on and joked about, I've also said they need to knock it out of the park. If it's anything less than spectacular, it will be a failure automatically. We have so many systems that work well. They're just done outside of the game, and honestly taken a little bit too much to the extreme with like 15 different raid plans for like one thing. But if they can do exactly everything they said in the under consideration, in what they showed, if they just do that exactly, it'll be unmatched. And I can't wait. All right, this person threw a hashtag in the middle. They were really excited that I mentioned Stranger of Paradise. Stranger of Paradise is really good. In like kind of Neo fashion, it gets a little too grindy in the DLCs. I never finished all the DLCs because of that, but even just a base game playthrough is a lot of fun. And then if you even just dabble in the DLCs, it usually gives you a pretty good life out of the game. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Howdy. Hi. What gear do you think Beastmaster will wear? I've been fighting this a lot because it really depends on the weapon. A combination of striking and maiming, I don't think so. Combination of the two, just there's no reason to assume they would do that. The closest you kind of get is scouting, having scouting body and aiming right side, or scouting left side and aiming right side. I don't see that happening with striking and maiming. It just doesn't make any sense. If they have a whip, it could be fizz ranged gear. But honestly, I don't think it matters. We'll have a lot of heads up about what gear they're using when they finally start talking about it, and we'll have time to collect it. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's a fun thing to ruminate on, but I wouldn't worry about it too much now. Hashtag Mondays with Fresh Cut Happy. Yeah, I didn't even mention the haircut at the start. I got kind of the boy band look going right now. Hi, Happy. Hope your vacation was a good one. Me too. My question was about the item level sync system, particularly regarding Criterion and Chaotic. Has there been a precedent for them removing an item level sync requirement from a duty due to feedback before? While I understand the desire to keep the challenge of the content over time, I still believe it's a mistake to have it for these kind of duties specifically. I completely concur, and have stated that there is no reason for Criterion, specifically normal mode, not Savage, to have an item level sync. I have said the same thing about Chaotic. One of the best parts about Extreme Trials, and that's what Chaotic is, it's basically supposed to be a 24-man Extreme, is that you can eventually outgear it. It maintains a longer life cycle because the interest in it actually goes up when the difficulty of it goes down, because it becomes more accessible. And there is no precedent for the thing you're asking, but I think they should set a precedent now, because Criterion's one thing, but Chaotic, to me, it is a massive mistake to not have it there. Criterion I kind of get, but only on normal. But Chaotic, no, Chaotic should really not be item level synced. Hashtag Nohello Days with Mr. Happy. Damn, I take one of those excess hellos. You've had enough, buddy. I'm cutting you off. Damn. That's messed up. What do you think you could get? What do you think could get you to try crafting and gathering? I mean, Cosmic did. I made every tool. I actually know what my crafting buttons do, and I'm able to do it. I'm able to do basic crafting without looking at Raphael, which is the macro making site that most people use. I'm able to fix mistakes when I'm not paying attention, and I have somewhat decent, not perfect, but better gear. That's what did it, was Cosmic. I hate it because I don't like doing it, but like, I'll do it for the sake of a reward that I want. So if only the 500,000 amount was cooler. Also, what's your favorite Beast Tribe Society reward? What's my favorite reward? Really like the mounts from the Mammal Jaw. I haven't even done the Mammal Jaw yet. I don't know. For a long time, it was actually the Bomb Palanquin mount, the love chair bomb, as I like the bomb love chair, as I like to call it. I actually was a big fan of that, more so than a lot of other people. But after that, I don't know. I guess I've kind of forgotten what the smaller rewards are. I kind of just remember the mounts and maybe a minion or two. But I could definitely shout out, there's been a few that have gone a little above and beyond. I remember especially the Ananta. I didn't really like either of the mounts, but the fact that it gave you 2 was actually kind of more motivating for me to do it early and then to continue to do it later. I don't know. I guess some of the ones I pointed out are up there, but I wouldn't say I'm too wild about any particular one. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hello. Hi. Okay, I have a topic that doesn't seem to get brought up often, at least from what I've seen. I'm willing to bet it has, but let's find out. Think we'll ever get an expansion with completely... Yep, this has come up. Completely original story, locations, enemies, trials, alliance rate, etc. So, everything original? No. Individual original parts, absolutely. We saw it with Endwalker. Like, yes, Endwalker has parallels to Final Fantasy IV, but actually the base Endwalker story, the parallels are very light. Like, Paladin being the main job, sure. Us going to the moon, absolutely. You know, even some of the bosses, like the Magus Sisters and some other ones in the base Endwalker, that's probably as close as you get. That really more feels like Final Fantasy 14. Obviously, the Loporrit's another big Final Fantasy IV thing. You know, all the naming ways and all that, as we called them back in Final Fantasy IV. Some of the music. That's as close as you're gonna get. I'm like, actually though, even Heaven's Ward, like, yeah, Heaven's Ward doesn't really call upon too much else. Like, yeah, Knights of the Round are from Final Fantasy VII, but what part of the Heaven's Ward story is like really referential to other Final Fantasy? It's not like Dawn Trail being 9 and Endwalker, especially post Endwalker being Final Fantasy IV. Shadowbringers has references to Final Fantasy 1, but it's nothing like Final Fantasy 1. You know what I mean? I'd say main story, while they throw in references, I'd say completely original is not realistic. Final Fantasy loves calling upon itself, but I think we've got enough examples of stories, locations, enemies, trials, and alliance rates sporadically that I'm content with that. Like, I really like Myths of the Realm in terms of the actual story and the world building around it. Trials are a good opportunity to reference things. And while the 4 Lords are a reference to Final Fantasy XI, they're nothing like their Final Fantasy XI counterparts. Kind of like the Final Fantasy IV bosses from Endwalker, the 4 Fiends. So, yeah, I mean, we have these things sporadically, and for me that's not, but Final Fantasy is so self-referential. It's actually core to its identity to reference other games, and 14's just had the opportunity to do it more than all the rest of them. I guess 11's technically had more opportunity, but they weren't as self-congratulatory as Final Fantasy 14 is. So, yeah, no, I think the answer is never completely original everything, but original here or there. Hashtag Monday with Mr. Happy. Hi, Happy. Hi. It's episode number 555, and for that, my question is, what across the years is the one question that stuck with you and you think back on every now and then? And I also realized we're missing a solo duty in 7.2 unlike every other .2 we've had. I wouldn't say that that's an expectation of... I would have never thought of that as like a .2 thing, and I've been playing all these years. So I wouldn't say that that's like an expectation. Even to you, it seems like an afterthought. What's one question? You know, I try to purge my brain of questions every week because I get asked the same questions so frequently, and it's no one's fault. No one can be expected to watch every weekly Q&A. Although there was a question earlier where I literally answered the question in the video, and someone asked me the question, the same question in this very comment section, and somebody even commented under and said he literally answered that in this video. That I don't get, because that's just willful ignorance. But I tend to purge because I just expect to have to answer them again. one question? Oh man, there's like, I remember one, I don't remember what the question was, but I remember one time I actually like made a different thumbnail because the question was so ridiculous. And I can't for the life of me remember what it was. If I just go through all my thumbnails, there's probably one that I actually edited where I went like, because that was genuinely how I was feeling. But no, it's too much, dude. I literally answer like 15 questions for over 500 episodes. Like, there's no way I have all that committed to memory. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi, Haps. Hi, and hi, Haps for the last week that I missed. Thank you. Do you think the devs would benefit from doing polls in game for player feedback? No. I think polls are a terrible way to do feedback. The bigger the community you have, the worse a poll is, because you're either barely reaching enough people who care enough to do it, and so it's too minimal of a response for it to actually be functionally useful, or you reach too many people and there's not really a consensus, because no matter what, the grand majority of players who are on average casual are going to overwhelm every vote, normal or negative. And then if you only base it on those decisions, then the people who are that your content is targeting, their voice isn't heard or it's not represented correctly. So I don't think polls are a good idea. OSRS does it, but OSRS is at a point where only the most dedicated people are playing, and thus there actually is a consensus amongst people who are still playing OSRS. So I think it works in that context, but I think with Final Fantasy XIV, it's too many people, it's too many thoughts, too many opinions that would clash. They'd have to only be asking specific groups of people what they think, and I think at that point, if you have to target specific groups, that's kind of invasive to like be like, oh, you do more raids than everyone else, and we notice. Now answer these questions. It's like, I don't like that you're just paying attention to my account like that. Second question, do you think it would benefit the devs and players if Square Enix set expectations for what they think each type of content is? No, I think it doesn't matter what the devs say, people create expectations. Like, people thought Fork Tower was going to be like CLL or Dalriada. It was stated like half a dozen times, there's permadeath, and it's inspired by like BA. And people are just willfully ignorant. So them stating it is completely irrelevant because people have to listen in the first place. People don't read the patch notes to find out where to unlock things every patch. They don't listen to the live letters. Like, that's the thing. Whenever a live letter goes into a really basic explanation about a core gameplay mechanic that the majority of hardcore players should know about or likely do, the reason why we yawn through those is because people are like, oh, but there's always new players coming in. They have to explain. I was like, new players don't watch the live letter. New players aren't like, wow, I'm new to this MMO. Let me wake up at 4 a.m. and watch a live. No, they don't care. They're just going to ask questions at some point when it's relevant to them. So it just doesn't make any sense in my regard. So them stating, we'd still have to tell people over and over again. No, they said this. And so it's like, okay, and even if they don't say, we as a player base who have experienced things before, we know what to tell people because we know what to expect. So it's honestly just the same thing. It's going to travel through the same channels, and them saying it versus us saying it doesn't really change anything. Oh, and I saw at the end of that last one, you said a lot of players got chaotic thinking it would be chiller and funner. They literally said, we wanted to make this extreme difficulty, but we kind of made it savage instead. So it's harder than we intended. I don't know why anyone would think chiller and funner. See, again, the devs stated exactly what they did, what they had created. So there should have been no question on the expectation. I still think even for Savage, too many body checks. But even still, nobody should have expected chiller and funner when they said, oh, well, we accidentally made it Savage difficulty. Intention stated. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy, unless it's Wednesday. It's not. Hello, Haps. Well, it's Friday, so it's still a weird one. Hope the vacation was great. Thanks. I hope it will be too. Just want to ask a question in case my perspective is off. Do you feel like higher end content has been getting excessive this expansion? No, it's been getting excessive since Endwalker. It's probably just the bonus of chaotic making it lopsided in my head, but it feels like there's much more constant flow of Savage or Heart. No, you are completely correct. I was actually making a video where I talk about how they have over-indexed on endgame content and that the average player is starving. Variants are good for the average player, but they're basically a content island that very few people visit. I think they need roulettes. I think they need long-term support. It needs to not be like 12 and done once you get the paths done, and then only if you really want to farm gil would you do it after that. Island Sanctuary, kind of a flop. Cosmic Exploration, specifically for crafters and gatherers. Even Heaven on High is getting a bonus thing for being a player who does all 100 floors, and then you get a hard mode challenge on top of that with the final boss. It's like we see it nonstop between Chaotic, having 3 ultimates since Endwalker. We had a new BA level raid without a CLL or a Dalriada equivalent. Like all of these things scream endgame, and I think they need to dial back and look at the broader scope of Final Fantasy XIV and do a little bit for us and then more for what they are, at least for a while, because they really need those long-term objectives that the average player can look at and go, oh, okay, I can do this too. And then support those systems for a longer period of time so players don't fall off on those things and aren't as interested. Fates are honestly a #1 contender for me for things they should probably revisit, both in older expansions and in their current and future expansions. So no, I think you're completely right. And as someone who loves hardcore endgame content, even I think it's too much at this point. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hey, oh, Haps. Hi. And a handful of hellos to those rude dudes. Yeah, we did have that person earlier. Although I think later in the comment, in that same comment, they said, nah, and I guess here's a hello. Watching our Coil raid retrospective, I was curious about some of the player philosophy, or for lack of a better term, compared to then and now. Big one being the players always be casting was something that most high-end players still did, and the TP MP management caused any issues. Yeah, you never stopped casting for TP or MP unless you were a healer. Then you might actually wait for MP ticks and not be trying to DPS every GCD, but that really depended on the fight, and that was especially something for Gordius. Yeah, you just did your rotation and hoped that, you know, there was enough downtime in a fight to get some TP back, or you had like Goad or, you know, Payon or both in the party, and that could help sustain you through a little bit more. And it was a pain. A lot of people, like Dark Knights, would run dry in like 2 minutes unless they had a ninja spamming Goad. But why is your ninja spamming Goad on the Dark Knight when they should be spamming Goad on like the Monk or the Dragoon, who is also going to run out of TP and contributes way more? So then your Bard's got to run Payon, but now your Bard's losing damage, and just to get your Dark Knight more damage. So shouldn't your DPS not be helping your Dark Knight and focusing instead on themselves, since they're the bigger contributing factor? Yeah, it was all sorts of a mess. But ABC was still true, even through all of that. Hashtag Monday with Mr. Happy. Hi. Hope all is well. I hope this isn't going to be a repeat of someone else's question. I mean, it could be. I mean, it's not like it's a problem. I can't expect everyone to read everyone else's comment. It's just if it is, you know, I'll say it right now. We saw an interview on how Square Enix President Kuryu was aware that 14 had a decline in quality and player count, but he responded to seem like he wanted Yoshi to solely focus on 14 as a result. What do you think about this? That's okay. Well, I'm actually surprised no one's brought that up, because that is a common topic right now. You're the first one to do it, so maybe someone else will ask it at some point. Doesn't seem like he wanted Yoshi to solely focus. So Yoshi P solely focusing on 14 does not make 14 a better game. Him being in charge of a department and being able to bring multiple quality products to people, or being able to at least get people in charge of things as a producer, more likely, and again as a department head, probably has more long-term value for Square Enix as a whole. Because if you have CBU 3 as a whole, hiring more people, building out more projects, then you have a more diverse portfolio. Now, it's not to say that that means they shouldn't give 14 attention. We see that they're trying to hire more people. They're not short on budget. They're short on hires more than anything else. And Yoshi P obviously wants to improve that as well. It's part of his department to make sure that Final Fantasy XIV continues to do well. And it's his personal, you know, kind of love project. You know, he is the director and producer both of Final Fantasy XIV. But he cannot make the game better as one person. He can only get the team organized, or he can help get the team organized and focused enough for them to produce products. And I think that what's again largely happened is the shift in focus towards endgame stuff has been representative of feedback that has been around for years, but it's just gone overboard. And Final Fantasy XIV has a history of over course correcting to try to make do on feedback, and I think that's what they've done here. So by Yoshida's own admissions, he says that he's noticed a decline in quality. I think he's more talking about the bugs, because he mentions it along with having the hot fixes for bugs and having them so frequently. But he does say overall he thinks that they need to like retool their processes and whatnot. But that being said, yeah, him solely being there won't make the it doesn't make more things happen. It just means that he isn't also in charge of other projects. So I think it's a matter of perspective. If you love Final Fantasy XIV, you think he needs to be the sole piece to make it better, then you probably don't like hearing that news. But if you go, oh, well, Final Fantasy XIV is good, you know, it's got some things I haven't liked recently, but if that same team could bring me some high quality RPGs that I'll love for ages, that would be great too. You know, it really depends on your perspective, and I want more projects out of CBU 3. I loved Final Fantasy 16. I'm looking forward to Tactics, and now that we also know that they're inspired by Expedition 33, don't be surprised if we see some more turn-based games in the coming years. And that's been a long time ask for us as well, and I would not want to rob us of that just because because people, I don't know, what's the thing? Because housing needs to be reworked in Final Fantasy XIV. Somehow Yoshi P not looking at it would mean housing would not get fixed. I don't know. So I think that it's just a matter of perspective. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Yo, Mr. Happy. Hi. Hope you had a good vacation, or had if you're doing it after this. In which case, wait. Oh, have and have. Yeah, I read the first part as had instead of have for some reason. My question is, did Yoshi ever say why our adventure plates and battle plates render the 3D models instead of just taking a screenshot of what we have on? I'm asking, so I don't, he has said that's why certain changes can't happen, but I don't think he said why they specifically chose to do that. Maybe it was easier for the adventure plate to pull that data directly from your character that's already loaded on your screen, instead of storing data in the form of a JPEG, PNG, whatever they want to, and using that instead. If I had to guess, those would be the contributing factors. It's just it would be storing more data instead of pulling from the data that's already loaded on the screen. It makes for some headaches, I get it, but I'm also someone who would be totally okay if they just moved it over to an image. Hashtag Mrhappy Mondays. Hello, hi, thoughts on adding Among Us? Among Us is kind of past its prime. I don't know that we even care about there's death of a game for Among Us at this point, which is wild to think. It's just that it's past its prime in terms of popularity. So I mean, I guess go ahead. Okay, Square Enix is making an Among Us game, basically. That I don't know how that's gonna do. That was a shocker to see. I do not have high hopes for that game. So maybe they'll collab with that and not, you know, a different game. Hashtag Mondays with Mr. Happy. Hi. I guess that might be tangentially related to the live. I just want to group all those questions together. Then there's Control F thing. Do you feel that some of the disliked things in expansion have been the result of devs trying to change things from Endwalker that people didn't like, but it's just not fully working? E.g. Endwalker tried a handful of things that failed, and people wanted stuff like Boji, Eureka, Ishgard. And now that we have that kind of content, might not hit 100% fully. Mark people. I mean, yeah, I think that's a completely valid way to feel about it. They wanted to make some pain points from those things less of a pain point, and also do something new with them, which creates its own separate set of pain points. And that's kind of unavoidable, but they just hit a couple of extra pain points that they didn't need to hit, that they kind of designed themselves into, hence the feedback section that we had with the live letter. Somewhat related, do you think that this expansion, despite all the community turmoil, is going to be looked back on fondly? I think for the most part, yes. This is very, very reminiscent to what happened with Stormblood. Honestly, it's like I'm running it back. People were calling Dawn Trail Stormblood 2 before it even was like fully underway. And I'm definitely getting Stormblood 2 vibes from this, big time. So yeah, no, this is Stormblood 2. Hashtag Mr. Happy Mondays. Hey Haps, hi, I hope you're well. I am. Bit of a different question. Different questions are completely welcome. I play on console with East Coast ping, bless your soul, and wondered if you knew any way to increase my connection. I have heard of people running VPNs through their consoles, but I don't know how to do it. I recommended to get a gaming router. That is one way to do it. Gaming router is wild, isn't it? Can't you just open the ports on your regular router instead of a gaming router that you're effectively probably paying more for, that I'm pretty sure is just going to auto detect and open ports? I'm almost certain that's effectively what a gaming router is. New Ethernet cable, sure. VPN, yeah, but I don't know how to run one through the console. I mean, yeah, so unfortunately, I don't play through console, and I've never worried about ping on console, so I've only heard passing things like the things you just mentioned and the things I mentioned, but I could in no way act as an expert nor point you towards any resource that would be, I think, valuable in this instance. All right, this is the last question. It didn't have a hashtag, but I saw them say, hey, Haps, hope you're doing well, as I was scrolling down. So I'm not sure if you'll read this because it's a bit challenging to answer, but has community ever been this whelmed by an expansion? Every expansion. It's the most I've seen content-wise since joining in 2020. It seems like community isn't happy. That's because I'm happy. Everything is a gripe or a pain point. I'm not saying those people are even wrong. They're not. I would agree. I said they're not you. I agree, but not as passionately. Big time. Maybe because I'm an ex-WoW player and I have perspective of a worse state of game, but like this, it's like this expansion has been a meme of a dog and a burning, it says burning building, my bad, burning building saying everything. Oh yeah, that thing. I don't think this is the worst expansion. I just think Sphene didn't land and they had to finish out her story or else they'd be lambasted for that. Well, keep in mind that Sphene, that stories normally end in the 0.3 patches, so the Sphene thing was going to happen no matter what. It's very, very normal for them to draw the story out like that. But this is pretty much every expansion. To this date, on content, Heavensward is still by far the worst expansion we've ever had. Yeah, people know the Heavensward story fondly, and there are some good things throughout Heavensward eventually. But in terms of failure of an expansion, in terms of content delivered, I can think of nothing worse than Heavensward. Gordius single-handedly killed the raiding community. Midas buried another nail in the hatchet, only fixed by the final set, which only really undid a little bit of work with the final bits of Alexander. We had a trial series that was fine, but you know, it's a trial series. It's not going to make or break the game. We had Diadem, which they tried twice in Heavensward and failed. We had a Relic that they tried to balance around the fact that Gordius existed, and it created one of the worst on-content grinds anyone's ever experienced. If you think now is bad with the demi-atmosphere, you know, you don't even know pain. Even not even remotely do you understand pain. And yeah, it was full of just ideas that didn't work and ideas they've since abandoned. Like Diadem was basically abandoned. Favors for crafting were abandoned, or gathering were abandoned. You know, Specialist is kind of still a thing, but only kind of. It's like not really a focus. You just get the, you know, the extra trait and whatnot. So yeah, Heavensward is by far the worst content expansion we've ever had. And it's not even close. So this is pretty normal reaction. I do think it's a bit exacerbated because there's a lot more people playing the game than there was in Heavensward. And the voices are a lot louder. And a lot of them have been around for as long and are just kind of... You do anything long enough and you do kind of get tired of it. You know, like... I'm not tired of it. But I think people notice I am more willing to speak on criticisms. I just try to keep my criticisms within the realm of possibility. Or I state that I don't think this is probable, but I wish, blah, blah, blah. I try to keep it just real, you know. And I think back in the day, I was more so just so hyped up and excited, even in the worst of times, that you probably would have seen that less. So, yeah. This is definitely not the worst expansion. Not by a fucking metric mile. I don't even know what that means. But, kilometer? But yeah, it's been a time. But I mean, you gotta get through it. You gotta listen. And the thought is that through all of the whining and moaning and things I just don't care to hear anymore, hopefully something better comes at the end of it. And, you know, that's good. That's for the better of the game. But that is the last question for, I got hiccups all of a sudden. This week's Q&A. If you ask a question, thank you. And if you'd like to ask one, put it in the comment section of the video below. This will still be releasing on Monday, so keep an eye out for it, even though I will be on a beach enjoying myself. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thank you again to the sponsors, SteelSeries, and all of you on Patreon, and I'll see you next time. Until then, bye-bye.